Hey, everyone who is in the Zoom meeting and anyone who might be watching. Just letting y'all know we are live on Facebook right now as we get this meeting up and running at Macon-Bibb.us. People without Facebook will be able to view this at Macon-Bibb.us. So if you're on Facebook, let people without it know. We'll be getting started here in just a few minutes once we confirm that we're up and running on the website. So if y'all will just hang tight, bear with us. Thank you very much. Hey everyone, this is Rachel Gamble with Macon-Bibb County Public Affairs. We are currently live streaming on our Facebook page, as we do with all these meetings being held by Zoom. We are waiting right now for this live stream to get plugged in at maconbibb.us. Those without Facebook are able to watch on our website, maconbibb.us. We'll be getting started here in just a few minutes. So attendees, thank you for your patience. And for those watching on Facebook, we will be starting the stream here shortly. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. This is Rachel Gamble with Macon-Bibb Public Affairs. If you are on this Zoom meeting as an attendee, if you'll just hold tight, we're waiting for this live stream to get up and running on our website. If you're watching on Facebook, you can let those without Facebook know they will be able to watch this meeting at maconbibb.us as well. We're just getting that set up and we'll keep you posted and get started here shortly. Thank you. This is Rachel Gamble with Macon-Bibb Public Affairs, testing the audio one more time for our website just to make sure we're ready to go. If it is in fact working, we will be starting in about 20 seconds. Thank you.
Good. Let me call to order this pre-commission meeting of the Macon-Bibb County Commission. First, read this notice to say, out of an abundance of caution, Macon-Bibb County Commission meeting and public hearing scheduled for Tuesday, August the 4th will be available to the Macon-Bibb County Commissioners by video conference only. For the 10 o'clock a.m. public hearing, the 5 o'clock pre-commission hearing, the 6 o'clock public hearing, and the 6:05 or thereafter commission meeting. Commission chambers will be closed to the public and the press in order to slow the spread of COVID-19. Therefore, the public and press may only access the meeting simultaneously online at www.maconbibb.us or www.facebook.com/Macon-Bibb County. With that said, the first thing I need to do is to add an executive session to this pre-commission meeting to discuss personnel issues, threatened or pending litigation, as well as acquisition or disposition of real estate. And my hope is to put that last on the agenda right before we go into the public hearing. So can I get a motion to add that executive session for those purposes at the end of this meeting?
So
got a motion by Allen and second by Schlesinger. All in favor of adding the executive session at the end of the agenda, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it, and we've added the executive session at the end. I want to start this meeting by telling you how full it is. We've got 2 hours worth of work, and we've only got about 45 minutes to get it all done. But I want to start with a COVID-19 update from Spencer Hawkins and an update on the governor's most recent executive order from Michael McNeil. So Spencer, can you lead us off and take just a couple of minutes and give us an update on where we are with COVID-19?
Yes, sir. So what we're looking at is in the last week to 10 days, we have seen a plateau of our numbers. So we're not going up, we're not going down. And so we're plateauing at our cases at around the high 60s, low 70s. This is still a concern. We still have significant community spread. We still need to get the word out about wearing a mask, social distancing, hand washing. That is the key that's going to start driving these numbers down, is for all of us to take those actions everywhere they are, everywhere we are, and continue to share that message throughout. On the PPE front, starting this week, Macon-Bibb EMA is issuing 2 cloth masks to every Macon-Bibb County employee. These are the reusable cloth masks that they can utilize. Plus, we also got one of our first major shipments of PPE in that we're going to be shipping out to the rest of the departments as well for their utilization outside of their employees. We're also doing a partnership with Macon-Bibb County Recreation to work on getting some PPE to our community. And we're going to have more information on that in the next few days on how and what that will look like. But other than that, we're continuing to monitor this situation. And, you know, we cannot stress enough the importance of wearing a mask wherever you are, washing your hands frequently, and keeping that 6 foot of social distance at all times as much as possible. And I'll leave the balance of my time for any questions.
Very, very good, Spencer. Let me go on and see if we can't get Michael McNeil to give us an update on the governor's order. Then we'll come back and take questions on both. Michael?
Mr. Mayor, there were 2 executive orders that were issued on Friday, the 31st. The first one, 07312001, extends the public health emergency for the state of Georgia by another 30 days. So the current state of emergency expiration date is now September 10th. The second order set out it was the 4th in the series called Empowering a Healthy Georgia, and set out the rules of operation for the state for the period August 1st through August 15th, which is the Saturday at the end of next week. And so the only major differences of note, there was a small exception made to the live venues provision. And then the governor added about 4 pages of citations to law and rationale for supporting his position that he is the quote ultimate authority when it comes to managing this pandemic and the response to the pandemic, and that the General Assembly has deliberately limited the power of local government to act inconsistently with the governor, and otherwise that any deviation from the governor's orders is improper. And he added, like I said, about 4 pages of citations to different code sections and constitutional provisions to support his position on that.
Very good. Let's go to questions now. I saw Commissioner Lucas had a question. Commissioner Lucas?
Yeah, thank you. My question pertains to the statement that we have reached a plateau. What were the numbers of infections and fatalities that you had for the last week? Spencer, do you have those numbers?
Yes, ma'am. I'm pulling that up now, and this is data that I'm pulling directly from the Department of Health's website. We're looking at, we're following the 7-day moving average is what we're laying out as our plateau. And our
what I'm
numbers.
asking you is to tell us the numbers for the last 5 days.
Yes, ma'am. So the last confirmed date for August the 4th on the DPH website, confirmed cases is 49. The moving average is 65.4. The day before that, 65 confirmed cases, 69.3 moving average. August the 2nd was 45 confirmed cases and 66.3 on the moving average. The August the 1st, the confirmed cases was 58 and the 7-day moving average was 64.1. And for July the 31st, confirmed cases is 51 and the 7-day moving average was 62.3. So those are the last 5 days, ma'am.
Okay, and the fatalities the last 5 days?
I'd have to look a little bit further in different situation reports. I can tell you currently, we stand at 62 fatalities for the duration of the event, and that was published as of today.
Okay, I would have a concern about us getting the false hope that we are at a plateau. We are not. And our numbers are still increasing. We need to look at those numbers. We need to be very much aware of what's going on in our community. health professionals are saying over and over and over that they have a dire emergency. So please don't let any of us give the false impression that we're anywhere near out of the woods on this thing. And so that is why later on, I'm going to ask, and I don't care what anybody else says. These are our neighbors. These are our family members who are getting infected and who are dying. We're about to send our children back into, well, I wouldn't, but a lot of folks are about to send their precious babies back into schools, and we're going to see some terrible numbers. I am afraid. And so let's just not get a false impression that we are anywhere near where we need to be. And there are still people bragging about the fact that we have a veto of that mask, mandatory mask. So later on, I hope that I get a second and that we are able to get 6 votes to override the mayor's veto. And I respectfully do this because I perfectly understand why the mayor was forced into a corner and having to do this. Our community was being threatened with the withdrawal of funds. And I've heard this from 2 or 3 different sources that are involved in economic development. And I resent that to as much as you could resent anything, because you're saying that one thing means more than another. And so I would just like for our commissioners to search your conscience and let's override this veto, at least to show that we understand that we still have a major issue and people are still not wearing the mask at the level that they should. We could do something.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Lucas, thank you. We'll take that. Yeah, we'll take that up when we get to the veto part. The next item I would like to take up, Dr. Moffitt, do you have anything to tell us about the emergency contract for yard waste pickup, or is that still pending?
Yes, sir. That will start on Monday. We have contracted with a company to assist us. We know we had a number of employees out over the last 2 to 3 weeks due to COVID, which got us behind on the bulk waste. And so I've asked Spencer to reach out to some of his companies that we use doing storms, that when we have more debris. And we went through a process of getting quotes. And under the Emergency Act, I did deem this as an emergency because we need to get the debris picked up. And so they will start on Monday. They will do alternate routes with the current solid waste, as most employees will be back from solid waste within the next 5 to 10 days. And so we'll be doing alternate routes, picking up the larger items, and then solid waste will come out picking up most of the bag items. So we anticipate next couple of weeks to get that going, and also including that would be the illegal dump sites. We know we have about 30 illegal dump sites, so to give us the opportunity to focus on those. And if you have any questions, please do not hesitate to email me or call me. But every department has been affected during this pandemic, and we are working through it. As you notice, some departments still are closed to the public, but are by appointment only. Some employees are teleworking, but I am ensuring that if they are teleworking, they are answering their phone and responding to emails. So again, if you have any questions or concerns, please do not hesitate to email or call me.
Good. Thank you, Dr. Moffitt. That's great. I'd like to now go kind of out of sequence, and rather than going to the consent agenda, let me move to the item of business, new business, and convening as committee of the whole. We need to revisit the resolution of the Macon-Bibb County Commission authorizing the Macon-Bibb County to enter into an intergovernmental contract with the Urban Development Authority for the rehabilitation and construction financing of Willie Hill. We've got Virgil Adams on the line with us. I'm going to turn it over to Virgil at this point, who can kind of refresh our recollection as to where we are and recent negotiations to establish the split of the administrative fee between Macon-Bibb County and the Urban Development Authority. Virgil, let me call on you at this point, please, sir. Uh-oh, you're gonna have to unmute yourself, Virgil. I see you talking, but you're gonna have to unmute yourself. Reach up there to your top of your screen and touch the screen and you'll see.
Got
There
it.
you go. You got
Okay.
it.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and good evening to all of the commissioners. I know you dealt with this in committee last week, and I thought it would be a good idea this evening that we present a short summary of the project that would show you what would be expected of the county, the obligations of the county if this project goes forward, the obligations of the Urban Development Authority, the obligations of the developer, and then the benefit to the community. So if I could right now, I've actually got this summary that I want to go through with you and then hopefully be able to answer any questions that you have. So I'll try to share it on my screen here. Okay, this is the City Hall Annex Hotel project summary. And Matthew Arrington actually put this together. And I want to just go through here with you. All right, the project highlights. If you see here, the project is a $35 million redevelopment of the former City Hall Annex, which will provide 94 Marriott Tribute hotel rooms, including 3 food and beverage outlets. Now, the economic impact on this project is going to be $13.4 million in estimated tax revenue to the county over a 10-year period. There will be an estimated $1 million annually derived from hotel sales and property taxes. This project will create 220 construction jobs, we estimate, 80 permanent jobs at a $2 million annual compensation. Now, here's a request from the Urban Development Authority. The Urban Development Authority is asking the county to pass a resolution to allow the mayor to enter into an intergovernmental agreement, which will provide that the Urban Development Authority will issue bonds in an amount not to exceed $23 million. Now, let me just say, that is the same language that we have used in every bond project that the county has been involved in, because we put that not to exceed so that if the numbers vary at some point, we don't have to come back to you and adjust documents and that sort of thing. But it is an amount not to exceed 23 million to cover 18.1 million in construction costs, which will also include 1 year of debt service in reserve. So there will be a reserve fund with a full year of money to pay the debt, and then also $900,000 for the Rosa Parks Square. And this is real important. $0 of county funds are being requested. So not asking the county to put up any money out of the coffers of the county. The request to the county is only what we call a credit enhancement on a loan, which will be made by the Urban Development Authority to the developer. So in essence, the Urban Development Authority will issue the bonds. They will then loan the proceeds of the bonds to cover $18.1 million to the developer. Now, the loan will be paid back from monies generated by the hotel operations, and I think this is important for the project as well, the personal guarantee of the development team. So not only is this project backed by the money that's going to be derived from this hotel, but also the personal guarantees of the development team. Now, the county's obligation is the same as it typically is with most bond deals. That is, if there's not sufficient money from the hotel operations, and if there's not sufficient money from the personal guarantees of the development team, the county will be obligated to make up the shortage on the payment. But keep in mind, $1 million for 1 year payment is already going to be sitting in reserve. Okay. Now, the developer is going to provide the remaining $17 million necessary for the project from private loans and equity. Now, in addition to the jobs that are going to be created, in addition to the payroll that's going to be generated, In addition to the $13.4 million in estimated tax revenue and the $1 million that the county should get annually for this project, the developer is also going to pay a credit enhancement fee in the amount of 2% to the county and the UDA. The county will collect 70% of that fee, which should yield the county an estimated $1.4 million in the first 5 years. Now, if you look at what protections are provided to the county under the terms of the loan with the developer team and the Urban Development Authority. As I mentioned already, there's going to be 1 year fully funded reserve to cover the debt service in the event that there's a shortage. The loan is structured to cap the county's exposure to $1.5 million in any given year. The Urban Development Authority has the first lien on the hotel. The Urban Development Authority will manage the project, oversee the construction, and make sure that the project is done timely and correctly, and also provide updates to the county. In addition, the Urban Development Authority and the county will have the ability to look at financial documents and reports to be provided by the developer. Now, the developer has requested a payoff on the loan in June of 2027. So you're talking 7 years. So not an extremely long period of time here, but there will be a mandatory payoff within 12 months after that date. Now, miscellaneous, the county will receive its first full-service boutique hotel in the county center city, which removes an existing blighted structure, preserves the rich architectural history of downtown Macon, and also generates a good deal of revenue. The project includes the development of Willie C. Hill Plaza and also provides funds for Rosa Square Park. Now, a little bit about the developer. The project is being developed by IDP Properties and Mainsail Lodging and Development. This development team has multiple Marriott branded hotels. So this is not the first Marriott or first hotel that they've dealt with. They've got multiple commercial and multifamily properties within their portfolio. As I said, it's under the Marriott brand, and we're all familiar with Marriott. In addition to job creation and producing over $1 million in annual tax revenue to the county, the project is estimating $3 million will be paid to local vendors, suppliers, and contractors annually. It's shovel ready with an 18-month completion timeline. And of course, we believe that the creation of the hotel will be a catalyst for future development and elevate Macon as a destination for visitors, conventioneers, weddings, and other events, which is an intangible benefit from the project. And at the bottom here, you can see that we've got the 10-year total potential tax revenue laid out for you. As I said, Matthew has put this together. He's on the cast here, and we've got Alex. So any questions, we'd be happy to try to address them. I will also say that the financial team has solicited bids from various lenders and have secured what we believe to be a really good rate for this project from a financial institution. And I would leave that up to Matthew to discuss more fully. But that's a synopsis of the project. I wanted to do something straightforward to you so you could just see what your commitment would be. And most importantly, it is not any money coming from the county. And also wanted you to see in writing here what the benefit to the community would be based on you not having to put up any money out of the county fund.
Virgil, thank you very much. Matthew, are you there and want to add anything?
Yes, sir, I'm here. Just here to answer any questions everybody may have. As Virgil said, we did go out and get bids. We had 7 different bids from 5 institutions, meaning everybody was very excited to do business with the county. We did get a very favorable rate that we, would like to move forward on. Again, if you guys remember, we were showing about a 4% rate. We got rates well below that. Obviously, the rate that we want to go with is about a 2.8. So that is beneficial to everybody involved. And, hopefully we have other developers come on and they can take advantage of these same opportunities.
And I want the county attorney to kind of weigh in on this if we need to. It is my understanding that at the committee of the whole meeting a week ago, we had a 5-4 vote to move this forward. The reason it's on pre-commission now is not for a vote to move it forward. It's already on the agenda as the number 2 item under old business. But this is to give commissioners a chance that if you have a question of Virgil or of Matthew, this would be the time. And I think we've even got Rhett Holmes and the folks from Mainsail on there as well. If any commissioner has a question for any of them, Duke.
Yes, sir. 2 things I'd like to say. One is the amendment that you would be voting on today does incorporate the change that we talked about last week, going from 50-50 split of the development fee to 70-30 in favor of the county, as Mr. Adams just talked about. And secondly, Mr. Adams is, just clarification, he is representing the county in this matter. So he is here on behalf of the county to give you any information as the commission that you need.
Yes, and I will say this too, we've been going through documents and several revisions have been made, and my task has been looking out for the county, and I feel like that's been done, and what we have in front of you is something that reflects that.
Excellent. Does any commissioner have a question of Virgil or of Matthew Arrington or of the developer? If not, I'd like to move on because we've got another very important matter to discuss at pre-commission, and that's the CARES Act funding.
I do, Mr. Mayor.
You do?
Yes, sir.
Is that Commissioner Allen?
Yes, sir, it is.
All right, go right ahead. Go right ahead, Commissioner. Ask your question.
Mr. Mayor, this is the Virgil. Question number 1, I understand that building hotels and such right now, there's a hold back on a lot of the private monies out there, and a lot of governments and a lot of other institutions are trying to pick this up. Have you heard that? And also, where are we on the parking? Because we still have no place for people to park down there, and they're going to be coming back asking for money also.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Commissioner Allen, for that question. Alex Morrison, I think he's probably more equipped to answer that question about the parking and that sort of thing than I am. I can tell you this, that even in the midst of the pandemic, there are projects still going forward, because this one is shovel ready, but it's an 18-month construction project. And I think the thought process there is, hopefully we're going to get through this pandemic and we get through it, and then hotels will flourish, transportation will flourish, and we will try to get back to some sense of normalcy. But I will defer to Alex to add a little bit more on that and specifically address your question about the parking.
Thank you.
Alex, go ahead.
Yes, sir, Mr. Adams and Commissioner Allen. We've been in discussions for a long time with Mr. Holmes and the development team about parking. The plans for this include parking some behind the city auditorium. The commission previously approved use of that lot for this project way back before this deal was even finalized with IDP. And also the rest of the parking plan involves a valet system to park people off-site in existing parking facilities that the development team would have to make arrangements for them to offer that to their customers.
So it's not in stone yet, right? About parking, it's not in stone.
Well, Alex, I think you've made arrangements. I think you've made arrangements for valet parking as well.
Yes. All of the formal arrangements are not in stone, but we do know we have adequate parking, and Brett can speak to that and what we've agreed to and what he's arranged to satisfy his lenders previously.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, Valerie, Commissioner
Yes,
Wynn, excuse me, I'm sorry.
Right. To follow up on Commissioner Allen's question, and this might be something Matthew Arrington can address. If we were to float or back another $10 million in bonds, which would have to go for this parking deck, would we have the capacity to do that as a city? How would that affect us financially?
Yes, ma'am. You do have the capacity to do so. I think at last check you had a little bit under $50 million capacity under your current financial policy. We are looking to bring forward some better policies for you guys to look at, which will give you more capacity, but also give you more reserves as well. But right now you have the capacity to do this, plus maybe another 30 million.
Well, as a follow-up, is that a wise thing to do? We don't want to go to capacity, but we're talking about 20 million, 23 here, and maybe another 10 million for parking. We really do need parking even to go with this new hotel project.
Yes, ma'am. Well, I think that's a decision for you all to make. Obviously, the economic development numbers support this project. And again, we have put some protections in place for the county. But the one thing I definitely like about this project is that the fact that the developer is committed to taking a loan out in 7 years. So, this won't be something that will sit on your books for 20 or 30 years. We're only looking for it to sit there for 7 years.
Thank you.
Any other commissioner have a question of Virgil Adams or Matthew Arrington or the hotel developer? If not, I'd like to move on to the CARES package. And as I say, further discussion and debate will occur during the main commission meeting. Second item on the agenda under old business is the final adoption of these resolutions. Having said that,
Mr. Mayor.
Excuse me?
Point of order.
Good, Michael. What?
Do you want to call for a motion on the amendment?
No.
Okay.
We can, I think the amendment's easy enough. It's 70-30 rather than 50-50.
Right.
I can understand that.
Okay.
We'll just take that up on the floor as part of the main motion.
Okay.
Okay. Then going forward, I want to turn this over to Duke and to Elizabeth Hall, who have been working very hard to come up with the CARES Act funding package, and Julie Moore is also standing by. But to give you a very short preview, there are some very tight timelines and a lot of money, but you've got to spend it appropriately is all thing I'll say, or they'll claw it all back. So Duke, Elizabeth, let me turn it over to you at this point. So, because that resolution is for us to adopt and agree to accept this CARES Act funding under all those rules and regulations. So Duke, Elizabeth.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and good evening, everybody. I am here, and Elizabeth Hall, who is in my office, is on the line as well, or on the Zoom call. She has done a lot of work in this CARES Act area, which means she knows a lot more than I do. But I can give you the background, and I talked about this last week a little bit in conjunction with the mayor signing the CARES Act agreement with the governor's office. In broad strokes, the state of Georgia through the governor's office has a appropriation from the federal government and for a certain amount of money. And depending on your size as a county or a city, you are entitled to a certain amount within the discretion to some extent of the governor's office. Our amount of money, and it's on the committee of the whole amendment to be voted on today, that we have been allocated for phase one. There are two phases. Phase one is a total of $8,017,000. And the type of thing you can spend that money on is any necessary expenditures incurred because of the COVID virus that was not budgeted or accounted for in your budget that was most recently approved as of the date of the enactment of this. So that would be last year's budget. And you have to spend it or show how exactly you're going to be spending it on and on what by September 1st of this year. And I'm going to say that again, by September 1st of this year. In other words, about 3 weeks from now, which is posing some difficulties, as you can imagine, for how to do this. The expenditures that you actually spend have to be before December 30th, but you've got to tell the state you've either spent the money already for reimbursement or that you're going to spend it by December 30th on these specific items. And Julie, along with Elizabeth, have come up, and I think that there was a meeting, I think yesterday, about it with a budget, I think, that maybe Julie can talk about in more detail. But in terms of what your action is for today, you are authorizing the acceptance of this money for the county to spend in accordance with the CARES Act. Now, there's two parts of the first phase. That is two parts of the $8 million. The first part is 2.4 million, and that's not an exact number. It's 2.4 million and $5,000, so it's just about exact. That money will be dispersed to the county in a portal to be put basically in a separate account, just like a grant. And all of this is like a grant. And we will spend that money in effect. And I think there's already an allocation in a lot of ways that Julie has come up with as part of this committee to go ahead and spend that money. Going forward, the next part, after you spend that 2.4 million and the state, the governor's office says that you spend it properly, and I'll get into that in a minute, then the rest of the $8 million is reimbursable expenditure. So if you spend it on a reimbursable expenditure that comes under the definition of necessary for COVID and unexpected in your budget, you'll get reimbursed that money by the state. And again, it's like a grant. You spend it first, they reimburse you. That's the rest of that $8 million. The big picture on this and what the mayor signed on behalf of the county and what you're approving today to accept it is that just like a grant, will comply with a lot of regulations, and they're pretty tight about how you can spend it, what you can spend it on. For example, you cannot spend it on things that would just basically be a revenue replacement for the county. So it has to be something that is a necessary expenditure directly or indirectly for COVID. I went through some examples last week, unexpected in your budget, and it's got to be within a certain time frame. And that September 1st date is looming over us, which is why we really need to act on it tonight. And so that's what's before you today. There's an auditing process that they go through at the state level, which with both Christy Alucci and Julie are very familiar with, because it's like a grant audit. There's reporting requirements through the portal. There's expenditure requirements through the portal. There's regulations. All of that they have down very well through this portal. But the big picture for y'all is that this is an amendment to, or a resolution to accept this money and spend it in accordance with the regulations of the CARES Act. So that's a long-winded way of saying we're trying to get this $8 million in.
Mr. Mayor. Duke, don't we have somebody, or maybe this is something for Keith, Dr. Moffitt, don't we have someone working on a list of where we're going to be spending this money already?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. Julie Moore has been leading that effort, and
where are we on that?
I thought we have the list completed. We are ready to submit the first part of that. If you would think of this in two parts, the first part is the reimbursement part, the 2.4 million to 30%. We're ready to submit that. And then we have the plan for the next 3 weeks, gathering information, how we will spend the additional 5 parts. And I thought Julie was on the call.
She is.
Okay, so Julie can give you any specifics on the items and the partnerships in the community that we're working with.
Go ahead, Julie. Why don't you do that? That may be helpful to answer Commissioner Wynn's question.
Thank you.
Right. The first things we're doing are looking at some costs that we can recoup for the government. And so we've looked at the PPE costs we've already spent, or cleaning buildings. We know that we can capture some of the overtime we've spent for public safety and some sick leave that some of our employees may have incurred, and their costs for the single audit for them to review all of this. We're capturing that, but we're also looking in 2 other areas: healthy community and healthy economy. So for example, I've reached out to both Department of Health and River Edge, and they have both submitted requests for things that they can also be reimbursed for, which is PPE and some of their personnel costs, and that they're doing telemedicine. And I'm very pleased that both of those entities have been so quick in response, so that the Department of Public Health has already submitted about $1.3 million worth of expenses that they can say they've already spent a portion of that, but that they could really use between now and December 30th. So I've kind of plugged that into the budget. River Edge was very similar. Theirs was about $1 million. And then we're going to continue looking out, and I've had several conversations with folks who are beginning to put money together, put ideas together of how we can make sure that we're feeding, getting people to the right places where food is accessible, and what we can do for the Homeless Coalition. And we're just kind of waiting on a few more of those answers back. And then our Healthy Economy, looking at ways that we might be able to help some small businesses have, for example, a grant that they could apply for so that they could buy some equipment to have a contactless point of sale, which is a safer way of doing business, or looking at what the CVB can do to help market some of the virtual things that may be happening with our museums and give some marketing money. So we're looking for some creative ways to get that first bit of the money out, because I think that they said at the very beginning, if we spend this correctly and we put everything in and do it the right way, we will be hopefully eligible for some additional dollars. So we are working feverishly to get all those numbers together, and we had a group of folks who are working on it. We had a good meeting yesterday with both finance and HR. Commissioner Watkins joined us for that, the mayor and others thinking of ideas, but we are definitely on a time crunch and trying to get.
All right, so this is Julie, this is what I would like to confirm. What we're voting on tonight is nothing to do with how we're spending the money. It's the fact that we want to receive it under these terms and conditions, realizing that we've got to spend it correctly. Or Elizabeth, maybe I could call on you to talk about some of the clawback provisions and penalty provisions if you misspend this money, because this is what I want the commission to think about. It sounds great to say, oh boy, we got $8 million to spend, but Elizabeth, how about what happens if we don't spend it correctly?
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. If the money is not spent appropriately, and this could be several years later that they come back and audit us, they have the right to claw back everything, not just one allocation that may have been inappropriate, but the entire amount. And so right now we're talking about, over $8 million. And so everything, again, as Duke has mentioned, has to be very ticked and tied and follow exactly the regulation, because we do not want to run afoul of that and have to end up giving back not just, one expense that they may have deemed inappropriate, but the entire amount. So everything has to be very, very carefully done in accordance with the federal act as well as with the state requirements.
Question.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Who are they?
Who is?
Yeah, when she says they'll come back and could take the money.
The state.
Clear. Who are they? Are we talking the state? Or are we talking the federal?
Both. You're talking state and federal. It's ultimately federal money that the president gave to each state. So it could be the federal government, it could be the state government, or
it can't be both. Because if
under the agreement, we have to directly report to.
Let me finish your comment. If the federal government is giving it to the state, then that means the state is responsible for how the money is spent. So that's why I'm asking the state. So who are we dealing with? Because if the federal government is giving the state the money, the state is allocating us $8 million, then we're dealing directly with the state. And then the state has to answer to the federal government. So it can't be both. So I just want to be clear, who are we talking about when we say they?
Under the agreement that we signed, we would directly report to the governor's office of planning and budget. Okay. However, under the CARES Act, anyone who gets any of this funding could ultimately be liable under federal law for anything that is done inappropriately.
Okay, well let me follow up and say this. Mr. Mayor and the staff, we understand time is of the essence. And we hear the do's and the don'ts and the penalties and so forth. One thing that's always behooves me is that, this administration fails to get input totally from the commission. And that's where the attorneys protect us. But just because we're under a hurry to do this does not mean that you cannot or should not have gotten input. If Commissioner Watkins was the point of contact for the commission, then that needs to be notated, because there are taxpayers that I'd love to give a relief to. There are employees that I'd love to give a possible bonus to. There are business owners that have suffered that I'd love to see get some funding. And so,
Right.
so
Let
you're
me
saying, let's get the money. No, you're doing two things. You're saying, let's get the money and then we'll figure it out. No, you sound like you're figuring it out already. And you're saying, go ahead and pass and get the money.
No. Hold on. Let me see if I can clarify. What we're doing is voting tonight to accept the money. It is my thought that that Julie Moore would send out a proposed expenditure budget for you to look at and comment on. And each of these things is going to have to be vetted through the attorney's office as to whether it's appropriate and legal. So
fair enough.
That would be forthcoming. So we ain't gonna spend anything without the commission knowing about it.
Well, what if we take the $8 million or so being offered and we don't use it all? I can't imagine that, but if we don't, do we just give it back? I mean, we get no penalty for that, right?
I'm going to ask Elizabeth to answer that question.
So under the agreement with the state, this is all considered phase one, and I apologize for the numbering, but there's phase one, and in phase one, and there's part one and part two. Part one, and they both have the same deadline of September 1st, I should add, of getting everything into the portal. But part one is the initial $2.4 million. And Julie Moore has been working on things that we've already expended a lot of money on, like FMLA leave, things like that, that can fit into that. Now that part one, we have to submit all of our receipts for that. Those receipts have to be accepted by the governor's office before we can move into part two of phase one. So then part two of phase one is more making requests of things like a grant. And in doing that, we would make the request, they would be approved, and then we would be able to spend it. Now, again, this is a tight time frame. Our hope is to get all of part one put in as soon as possible. And then as soon as that's approved, start making these requests as soon as possible, because again, we're up against the September 1 deadline. We have until December 30th to spend the phase one part two allocations. I do believe, to your point, that if we don't use it, we will lose it. And another point that is very important is that this is phase one. The governor's office has said, depending on what happens with phase one, they, quote, may, end quote, consider additional phases. Under the Federal CARES Act, going by the population, Macon would be entitled to something like $27 million. So, this is the first 8 million. To have any chance at a bite at that other apple of the rest of that 27 million, we have to meet all of these deadlines. And it's very quick. And again, it's very particular about what has to be in. Julie, did I miss anything?
No, I think you're exactly right. And we will be we accept the money tonight. We are working as quick as we can to get a budget together for you to review.
Okay. I need to move on. I need to move on from this, and my impression again is that we have voted to accept this, so it's on the agenda tonight, already on the agenda, and I'm sure we'll have further spirited discussions about it when we get to that item during the regular meeting. But I've got a couple of other items I need to get to in the pre-commission to get on the agenda for tonight. So if there's no objection, let me move on to a couple of other things right quick. and see if I can get them done, and then more discussion to follow in the main meeting, because we've got about 12 minutes and yet an executive session yet to go as well. So moving on very quickly, we have 8 items on the consent agenda. Most of them are a change of ownership of an existing store with fuel sales and alcohol. There is, however, one new location. It's a new Inmark station at 3311 Mercer University Drive for beer and wine package sales to go at that location. There is one other additional item that is for Jaya Food and Gas Incorporated, where the attorney's office has recommended that we deny the license application because they have been, it is within a prohibited distance from Cirrus Academy and has been without an alcohol license for 12 months. And therefore its grandfather period has run out and expired. And therefore the attorney's office recommends that we deny that one. But they are 8 total license applications. 7 of them I would like to move forward, and again, additional discussion can follow at the main meeting. But I'd like to get all 8 of them on, 7 for approval and 1 for rejection.
Thank you for the rejection, legal. Thank you.
Yeah. So can I get a motion to put them all on the main agenda?
So moved.
Okay, got a motion and a second. Who's my second?
Schlesinger, a second.
Good. Got a motion and second, and to put them all on there, 7 for approval, and we'll go over them in detail at the main meeting, and 1 for rejection, and we'll vote on them separately there. So is there any further discussion about putting these 8 licenses on the main agenda for tonight under the consent agenda? Hearing none, they're all in favor of putting them on the agenda for action tonight, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Okay, the ayes have it. So those consent items will be on the agenda for further debate and action. Got 2 new items of new business. Number 1 is a little red Jeep. I don't know that we can put the picture up of the little red Jeep. This is a Jeep that was confiscated by the Macon-Bibb County Drug Unit about 20 some odd years ago. It was sad, a little Apple, and was used for several years by the state fair. When the state fair closed down, they were going to basically get rid of it and dump it because it was in such poor condition. But Sam Hughley went down and got it and has spent his own time, effort, energy, and money kind of working on it. So there's a picture of the little red Jeep now. Sam Hughley has just retired after 45 years of service to Macon-Bibb County. We've got no use for this thing, and he has a mechanic's lien for all of the time, effort, and energy that he's put into it. So we want to satisfy the materialman lien, declare this as surplus, and give it to Sam for the time, effort, and energy that he's got in it, because it wouldn't be what we can't use. It's got no windshields, it's got no doors, it's got no roof. So we want to declare it surplus. Yeah. So I want to put this on the main agenda for action tonight.
So moved.
So when did Sam retire?
Huh?
When did Mr. Hughley retire?
July the 31st.
Oh, wow. How many years?
Wow.
40 plus, right?
Oh, wow. Right. So was that a second, Virgil?
Yes.
Put this on the agenda to talk about some more tonight on the main meeting.
Yeah, but tell me more about me. So now there's no director of vehicle maintenance?
Well, I will. We got an interim right now. Is Keith Butler is acting as interim, and we'll post it. But Sam Hughley, basically speaking, told us he didn't want any fall roll, any celebration, any of this, any of that, or the other, and he threatened Dr. Moffitt with his life. So he wouldn't even agree to come up here and be recognized for 44 years and 10 months of service as vehicle maintenance. So anyway, got a motion and second to put this idea to declare the little red Jeep as surplus property and satisfy the materialman's lien of Sam Hughley by awarding it to him and quit claiming it to him. So all in favor of putting that on the agenda, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Okay, that'll be on the agenda. And the last one that I've got, we've talked about this one before. It's the ordinance to amend the portion of chapter 26 relative to the community redevelopment tax incentive program. And I think Michael has done this. It was a typographical error, but then in addition to putting in new code sections, he kind of cleaned up some things and went over this. My recollection is that we voted to put this on the agenda tonight. Michael, is anything else about this that we've changed and need to talk about at pre-commission?
Yes, sir. After I presented at committees last week, Wanzina Jackson contacted me, and she noticed that in the document it refers to the Economic and Community Development Department as overseeing the building inspection program, and that's not where that program is housed anymore. And so it just changes the references. The amendment that's on the agenda tonight changes the references to the ECD department to instead say that it's subject to the control of the public official, which is the county manager that's designated in the ordinance to oversee the blight tax program.
So that's one additional change in that. So
Right.
in order to put that on the agenda tonight, I need a motion and a second to put that on the agenda for action tonight.
So moved.
By Schlesinger and second by
So moved.
by Allen. All in favor of putting that on the agenda for tonight, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Okay, so that's on the agenda. That's all of the new business we've got. Now we need to go into executive session, and I need just a half a second to explain to people that are listening in. If you're not entitled to be in executive session, they're going to put you in the waiting room, and Rachel can kind of explain that. But first, let me get a motion to go into executive session for the person talking about personnel, pending or threatened litigation, acquisition, disposition of real estate. Can I get a motion to go into executive session?
So moved.
Schlesinger, second by
Jones.
Okay, got a motion and second to go into executive session. All in favor of going into executive session by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Okay, the ayes have it. Rachel, what are we going to do? You going to boot everybody else off other than the commissioners and the staff and the attorneys and put them in the waiting room?
Yes, so what we're going to do is everyone who is on the meeting that is not supposed to be in there will just go into the waiting room. You don't have to close your computer. You don't have to do anything. And we'll bring you back in once the executive session is complete. I am going to stop the live stream on Facebook, so we'll have to restart that. So there will be a couple minute waiting period when we come back. But for right now, we're ready to start the process of just putting people in the waiting room. And if y'all
okay, put them in the waiting room. We'll go into executive session, which I hope won't take more than 10 minutes. So y'all stand close by, and Rachel boot them off. Put them in the waiting room. Whatever.